And welcome everybody to this week's edition of Behind Enemy Lines. I am your host, Louis Sung. We are back after a couple of weeks hiatus. One, because I wasn't feeling well, and two, because it was a Thursday night game, so we weren't really able to do it. However, I have got a great treat for you today. Joining us is our good friend, Antwan Staley, who has, I guess, depending on what position you take, you could say he's gone to the dark side, but he is always going to be a friend of ours and a friend of mine. Antwan, my friend, how are you?
I'm going good. How you doing, Lewis?
I'm doing all right. So, how's New York? How does it compare to sunny Florida?
I technically live in Jersey, so it's definitely a lot different than living in South Florida. But it's positives and negatives with everything.
So, what have you found is better about New Jersey than it has been about Florida? Give me some pros.
Some of the food. You can find like Chinese food is probably better up here. Bagels, stuff like that. I think that's kind of what comes to mind initially.
But can you find any Cuban food though?
I'm sure you could, but I don't know if it compares to down there. I
Okay.
mean, in the city, I'm sure in the city you probably could.
Alrighty. Well, if you ever find any, let us know how it compares.
Oh,
So,
I definitely will.
oh, and I think I am contractually obligated to ask you this question since it was brought up. What's your favorite barbecue sauce, and which style of Carolina is it?
I don't know if I have a favorite barbecue sauce, but I have a favorite barbecue. I think my favorite type of barbecue just to eat is Memphis barbecue. Now, I know it's kind of crazy to be saying that from being from North Carolina, but yeah, I just kind of really like Tennessee barbecue.
Okay, well, I mean, hey, everybody has a favorite, even the guys who don't live there. Whatever,
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm sure the folks in Carolina just gonna have to get over it, right? It's like,
yeah, I'm
it's
sure
not
they'll
the
be fine.
best. Alrighty, so let's get right into it. But before I do that, let me just bring up that this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com, the revolutionary fantasy platform where you pick up to 5 different players across professional sports leagues, the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, one of each. It's up to you, and just choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy projections, whether that's individual stats or the classic fantasy point projections. That's up to you to decide. And they often give you freebie picks that you can go ahead and take advantage of to increase your chances of winning. There's really no excuse not to sign up at this point. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE, at prizepicks.com. 5 Reasons Sports, we are proud to have them as our sponsors. All right, so the New York Jets, Antwan.
Yes.
For the past several games, the Miami Dolphins have pretty much made easy work of them. And I understand that the Jets are a now much more talented team that they have been before. They got themselves some nice pieces. Brees Hall, Fredo Arteaga, 3 yards per carry, recently gave him some major kudos. He's a legitimate running back. Obviously, Sauce Gardner, he's been having himself a fantastic rookie season so far. And I'm going to go ahead and reference Alfredo again, is that he had actually interviewed him before the draft, and he was essentially saying that he thinks he can match up very easily with the likes of Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. And in the same breath, he says that he's not trying to be cocky about it, but at the same time, if he's saying that guys like him, he's like, oh, they're no big deal to me. He's basically saying, yeah, once I get drafted, I'm going to be immediately one of the best corners in football, is what it sounds like.
He's played like that so far. So far, I think he's. You look at the metrics, whether you kind of believe in Pro Football Focus or some of the other metrics out there. He's been a top 15 corner in the league right now. And that's crazy to say about a guy that came out of Cincinnati, not necessarily a big time school for talent, and then him transitioning over to the NFL. And a lot of rookies, no matter where you come from, you typically struggle to pick up the game early on. But he's played up against some of the best receivers in football. Whether you talk about Jamar Chase in the Bengals game, or he even lined up against Mark Andrews the first game of his career with the Ravens. So he's played every assignment really well. Played against Mari Cooper against the Browns a few weeks ago too as well. So I think he's done a tremendous job at least early on, and he's only going to continue to get better and better.
So how do you feel like he's going to match up against guys who are not necessarily, because you mentioned Jamar Chase and you mentioned Amari Cooper and you mentioned Mark Andrews. All three of those options that he was faced off against, those are more like the bigger go up and get it type of targets. Now he's going to be facing guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, where it's not physicality that's their greatest weapon, it's their raw speed. There was even a corner back in preseason who had said that when he actually faced off against Tyreek, he was like, "Oh my gosh, that speed is different, man. I was dying out there." How do you think Sauce is going to do against a different kind of receiver like them?
Yeah, I mean, him and DJ Reed, I mean, they've done a really good job so far this year. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a whole different test placing, probably the fastest team in the NFL right now in terms of receivers. And then not to mention you gotta be accountable. You have to look out for Mike Gesicki as well. So I know he hadn't necessarily had some of the big season that I think a lot of people have envisioned, but in a game like this, especially against a Jets team that doesn't cover tight ends particularly well, I definitely think that I can see the Dolphins utilizing him a lot more. But yeah, honestly, I think they're probably going to use a lot of zone, probably to try to, cover, their speed and try to negate it as well. It's also going to be on the safeties, Jordan Whitehead and Lamarcus Joyner, who had a big game last week against the Steelers, had 2 interceptions. So it's going to be all hands on deck. I don't think it's necessarily going to be emphasis on the corners, Reed and Gardner, depending on, I mean, no matter how great of a year they've had so far, it's just going to be up to the entire defense to be able to keep those guys, try to hold them as much as possible.
Now, obviously, like even though you're covering the Jets, I know you still have a heart for us Dolphins fans in Miami. I'm
Of
sure because you still
course.
have a bunch of them in your mentions all the time. I'm sure, so you keep an eye on them. I'm
Yeah.
sure that you watched what happened on Thursday night with Tua Tagovailoa and everything that happened with his concussion and how the whole drama went down. Teddy Bridgewater coming in. I won't necessarily ask you about the drama unless there's something you really want to get off your chest, but I digress. Um, how do you feel that the Jets are going to adjust to the fact that it's now Teddy Bridgewater instead of Tua? Do you think that they're looking at this game in a different light now that it's going to be a different guy?
Well, from what we talked to coaches about this and players actually on and off the record, and some of them have said they don't think it'll be much of a difference with Tua. I mean, what Teddy back there as opposed to Tua. I know the Jets defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich today actually said, well, I don't necessarily agree with this, but he did say that he feels like Teddy and Tua are kind of similar players. They have a very similar skill set. In a way, I can see that, but I definitely think they have some different attributes in a way. But yeah, I think for me, what I think what's going to happen is, especially with Mike McDaniel, him being a run first type of offensive coordinator, and what his run style, I definitely think they're going to run the ball a little bit more with the guys that they have in the backfield there, and use that speed as opposed to, I think, trying to put too much on Teddy Bridgewater and trying to win the game for. So I definitely think they're going to try to run the football, especially considering the Jets had some issues with the run defense that last week against Najee Harris. I think they're going to see that, and then they're going to decide, you know what, let's try to rely on our run game a little bit more to kind of take pressure off of Teddy.
Well, the Miami Dolphins offensive line, it's obviously still having a little bit of its struggles. Greg Little was great in the first 2 games that he played, and then he got hurt and immediately just fell off a cliff for his as far as his quality went.
Well, I
So
saw him in Carolina, so I know, yeah, he kind of, had some injury concerns there too.
but it wasn't. But that was the curious thing, Antoine. Like, I guess we can talk Panthers real quick. Wasn't Greg Little's thing? Like, I was under the assumption that he was just one of them NFL draft busts. Like, we got him for like peanuts on the dime on the dollar. So I figured, oh, he must not be that great because we didn't trade a whole lot of draft capital to get him.
No, he just couldn't stay healthy. That's basically what it was. I mean, the Panthers
So it was
wanted.
never that he was bad.
No, no, no. It was just because he couldn't stay healthy. I mean, he had like a concussion injury, and then it was another type of injury that kept him out long term. So, and then uh, one of your best abilities is availability. So if you're not available, then it's kind of hard to judge a player on how they might perform. So I think they just kind of got tired of it, and they wanted other players that were more available. Matt Rule came in as the coach, and wanted to put his own players in there on the offensive line. So that's why I think Grant Little was expendable there.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So back to the team that they're actually playing. So the New York, I know, you know me, Antoine. I go on
I
tangents.
can talk about anything, so it's all good, man.
All right. So Now the next thing I want to ask you about the Jets offense. Now,
Yeah.
Joe Flacco came in. He did all right, all things considered. He's definitely not the Joe Flacco who won the Super Bowl, although I didn't think the Joe Flacco who won the Super Bowl was that special anyway. But I digress. Um, so Joe Flacco is now out. Zach Wilson is back, and Zach Wilson had a mixed performance against the
Yes.
Dolphins to start his career off. It was some good, a lot bad, and he now correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like he had his fair share of struggles in the last game as well.
Yes, it was kind of the same thing with the Steelers game. It was some good early. Jets got off to an early lead. Then the second and third quarter, it was a lot of bad, a lot of mediocre throws. Like the pressure was in his face. The Steelers, and I think that's kind of what a lot of teams are going to do. They're going to try to pressure him to try to make decisions on the fly, and he ended up throwing a couple of interceptions because of that. And then the fourth quarter was really good because he ended up going 10 for 12 with 128 and threw it a touchdown pass to lead them to a 10-point comeback victory. So, yeah, it was, you can call it rushed, you can call it whatever you need to, but the fact of the matter is the Jets were able to get the job done and pull out a victory on the road against, a Steelers team that, they're not the old Steelers team, not the Steelers teams from old, but it's still like, anytime you can get a win in this league, especially on the road, I definitely think, that says something, especially when you come back to do it.
So now here's the thing with the Dolphins is that they have faced off against quarterbacks to start this game, to start this season. Lamar Jackson, painfully elusive. Like, don't even try to bring him down. You're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, obviously same vein, except he's bigger and bulkier instead of faster. So he's in some ways even harder to bring down. And Joe Burrow, who he's basically had to learn how to avoid pressure nonstop in this NFL so far. So the Dolphins, they got to him a little bit more, but not as much as we would have liked. So now we bring it Zach Wilson. Well, you just said he. I guess you could say he doesn't handle pressure well. He doesn't like having guys in his face.
He doesn't, but he can also move too. So yeah, he can move if he needs to. It's not like Joe Flacco back there, which is pretty much a statue. Like Zach Wilson, when pressure's coming his way, he has the ability to move and get outside the pocket and throw the ball away if he needs to. The problem is like when you're having a rush coming up right in the middle in his face. He sometimes gets flustered and makes bad decisions. And I think we saw a little bit of that last year as a rookie. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the game against the Steelers too. So yeah, if you're the Dolphins, then you kind of have to try to do a little bit, implement a lot of that what the Steelers were doing, at least from a pass rush aspect.
So you're well aware, you're well acquainted with this. Josh Boyer loves that whole cover zero looks. Try to see if
Yeah,
you can get the guy to make a mistake, put some blitzing, make it look like you're blitzing, but then don't really. But if that's the case, I feel like that just based on that, what you just described about Zach Wilson, he would act that defense is basically tailor made to bring him down.
yeah, I mean that's kind of what they want to do. They want to make sure they can put pressure on his face and force him to make quick decisions there. So yeah, I imagine they're going to do a lot of use a lot of that on Sunday there, and I think for the Jets too. Also, I mean, you talked about Brees Hall early on. They definitely need to have they're going to win, they need to have a big game from him, and also, of course, avoid the turnovers there. And the Jets have some, reshuffling on the offensive line right now. So I don't know who's going to be the left tackle this week or not. Last week it was Elijah Vera Tucker who moved over from left guard to right guard to left tackle and did a tremendous job. To be quite honest with you, I mean that's very rare to have somebody go from guard to tackle in the span of a week. But I thought he did a tremendous job just considering the circumstances that was presented in front of him.
And so that offensive line, do you feel like that it might have trouble picking up some of the blitzes with how much of an flex it is?
I guess it depends on who's in there, but yeah, I think it could be. I mean, you're missing. Dwayne Brown does play, which is he's been practicing. I mean, you wonder how effective he's going to be, considering he came out of training camp already late anyway.
Is he coming
Signing
off
with
of
the Jets.
IR?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, he
okay.
was he was on injured reserve, and then yeah, he hurt his shoulder right before the season started. So he has not played at all so far this year, and only played one game of preseason. So you wonder, do you want to just kind of toss him in the fire like that? without just a couple of days of practice. So I'm curious to see what they might do. They could go with Vera Tucker at left tackle once again, but they also have Matt Mitchell, their rookie, who was doing a tremendous job at right tackle. He's hurt. He's not on injured reserve, but it's very unlikely he's going to play this week too. So you're going to have Connor McDermott there, who's moved around quite a bit at right tackle, which could be a potential issue for the Jets.
So in some ways, he's Jesse Davis, but maybe a little better.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
It's like, I can do everything, but can you do it well? Well, that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I want to ask about the weapons that the Jets have. So I'm just looking down the roster here, and CJ Uzoma. Okay, so that's pretty good. Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson. Obviously, as a rookie, he's doing a pretty good job.
Oh yeah.
So how do you feel? So obviously, the Miami Dolphins. Byron Jones still not back. And at this point, I'm not sure he's going to be back, to be perfectly honest. The way that they're talking about it, the way they're talking about it doesn't sound like he's going to be back. Honestly, I'm at this point, I may be considering looking into other options for the future. And Xavier Howard now, groins are injured. So
it doesn't seem like he's going to play either.
I mean, we'll see what happens. He said he's going to do everything he can, but if that's the case, I feel like that there are going to be some opportunities for those wide receivers to be breaking free. Again, granted, Cater Coe, who's doing a fantastic job as a rookie, and Nick Needham is still a solid player, but he's definitely not Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. How do you feel like these wide receivers for the Jets are going to match up against the reserves that, obviously, you know who they are?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be key. I mean, it's gonna be key, especially when you have a guy like Garrett Wilson, who I remember seeing what he did against the Browns, having 8 catches for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. If they're gonna win, I definitely think he needs to have a similar type performance there. I mean, you know what you have in Corey Davis there. He was effective last weekend against the Steelers too, but Garrett Wilson is somebody that can blow the top off of defense, and it's a really tremendous route runner, even at this stage of his career. So yeah, having him, be an X factor, especially when you don't have a guy like Xavier Howard potentially not playing. I think that's going to be huge, especially when the Jets are. I mean, when the Dolphins are going to bring a lot of pressure, as I anticipate on Sunday. You need him to make some big plays, especially in short catch situations.
Mm. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to get into some predictions of what we think the game is going to be. So obviously, I think for me anyway, if the Dolphins are going to win this game, obviously they're going to have to control the play clock. Teddy Bridgewater needs to make sure that things keep moving, that they keep scoring. I've been saying the Dolphins can beat anybody. They already beat Buffalo. They already beat Baltimore. They already beat the Patriots. They lost to the Bengals, and part of that, a big part of that was because of what happened with Tua. I really believe that if Tua had stayed in, they would have had a really good shot at winning that game too, just in my personal opinion. But I digress. If the Dolphins are going to win this game, they're just going to have to score points. So Chase Edmonds can't afford to drop a pass in the end zone. They can't have bad interceptions at 30 seconds at the end of the game. But I feel like that's going to be the key for the Miami Dolphins. Now, for you, what is going to be the main key if the Jets are going to win this game against the Dolphins, regardless of them being at home or not?
Just don't make mistakes. Yeah, stay away from the mental mistakes. I definitely think, looking at their 2 losses, which were both at home, crazy enough, against the Ravens and the Bengals, they made a lot of mistakes, whether it be turnovers, whether it be penalties, drop passes. If they can avoid the mental, mistakes that they endured, then I think they have a really good shot. I think this is going to be a really close game. I really do, especially when Teddy Bridgewater in there. If Tua was playing and I feel like the Dolphins were completely healthy, then I would go with Miami to win this game, because I think roster-wise, they're that much. As much as the Jets have improved, I think the Dolphins are just the better team. But now with they having many injuries that they have, and I think the improvements the Jets have made, I think it's a chance that they can win this game. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be one of those ugly, low-scoring type of deals there between the two teams.
All right, so the way you worded that just now, I'm sorry, I have to throw you into the frying pan a little bit here.
Yeah,
so is the way you described that a detriment to Teddy, or is that credit to Tua in your opinion?
No, I'm not dissing. I'm not trying not to diss anybody, but yeah, I guess if you're wanting to ask me that, I think it's probably a credit more to the way Tua's been playing this year.
Okay.
I think he's been playing at an MVP type level, and anytime you have your signal caller not out there and a lot of MVP candidate, I mean, it's going to hurt a little bit. Even with a guy like Teddy who has a lot of experience, but we kind of know what Teddy is. He's a game manager. I mean, he's not going to necessarily lose the game for you, but I don't know if he's going to do anything to carry you and put you over the top too. So that's why I feel like other people are going to have to step up for the Dolphins if they're going to get this job done.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sorry, man. I didn't want to get too anon on you, but it's like
No,
because
no,
I like
no.
to know the stances of people
No,
nowadays
I'm
because it
not.
seems like you've seen NFL Network, you've seen ESPN. Like the Tua thing is there's some here and then there's some all the way down here. Keyshawn Johnson.
Well, here's the
Yeah.
thing, though. Like, I mean, you can't, argue results right now. I mean, Tua was,
Apparently
playing
you
at a.
can.
Well, I
Apparently you
mean,
can.
you're ridiculous. You're not watching the games if you're not seeing what this guy was doing. I mean, whether you like Tua or not, whether you think he could be successful long term. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, he was killing it. He was, like I say, he was playing at the MVP level until he got hurt. So I don't know. I don't know how. I think it's hard to argue that at this point.
Mm. Well, Keyshawn Johnson finds a way. But anyway. All right. So what do you want from me, man? All right. So predictions, the actual predictions. Let's get a score from you, Anton. What do you think is going to happen in this game, and what's the final score?
I know I'm not gonna be. I know this is not gonna be a popular opinion though, but I just feel like you know
Well,
the.
right now you're covering the Jets, so don't worry about Dolphins if that's what you're talking about.
Well, either way, but I kind of feel like the Jets have a little bit of momentum with Zach Wilson. I think it's going to be a really close game. Going to come down to a field goal, probably either Great Sirlon or Jason Sanders. I'm going to go with the Jets, 24-21, in a really really close game there on Sunday. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go obviously in the opposite direction. I personally feel like that, and it's not just because it's a Dolphins thing. I picked
Yeah, yeah.
I picked the bank. I picked the Bills to win when they showed up, but thank God they proved me wrong. So I mean, who didn't think the Bills were going to win that game? Let's be honest right now.
Well,
So
I actually thought Miami would win that game.
well,
I thought they,
really? Oh my
yeah,
God,
I
man!
did.
Am I the only? I'm starting to feel a little. I'm starting to feel like,
Yeah,
man, did I
I
really have
was
this little
people
amount of faith?
people were killing me. They were like, "Oh, well, there's no way the Bills lose this game." And I was like, "Man, look at all the injuries that they have like right now in the secondary." Like,
Yeah, I figured that would be how they had a chance at it. Oh, are you still there?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry about. Yeah, I said I thought the Bills were gonna lose because I thought for their safety was out and they had a lot of injury concerns. So yeah, I thought it was a great opportunity for Miami to finally snap that 7 game losing streak against Buffalo. I did have them losing against the Bengals because I felt like kind of the emotions of that win, along with some of the injury concerns with
No, they were
Tua. You
wiped,
know,
bro. Like
yeah,
like
yeah, that was a short
rampant.
week. Yeah,
Yeah, and how
it was
hot,
it was just
blistering
prime
hot
for a
it was. Yeah.
letdown. It was just prime for a letdown on Thursday night. So yeah, but I thought they would beat the Bills. I thought they'd finally get it done.
Okay. So this time I will definitely pick the Dolphins to win. I just personally feel like the defense is going to drive Zach Wilson up a wall. I don't believe that he has the capacity yet to handle the blitzes as well as the Jets would like him to. And with all the different looks that Josh Boyer is going to give him, regardless of whether Xavier Howard is there or not, I feel like Wilson might make an errant throw or two. And if nothing else, Javon Holland will be out there getting ready to ball hawk a few passes that get thrown badly. So I think the Dolphins will win. I think that they will win to the score of, let's say, 24-17. And I feel like the reason it's just because I feel like the offense is going to be able to do enough to score points. And I think the defense is actually going to score a touchdown in this game because, again, I just feel like if it hasn't worked against anybody so far as stopping them from getting yards, it stopped them enough from scoring points to a certain extent. But with Zach Wilson, I really feel like that the blitz is going to be enough to mess with him.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, he still has questions to answer in that regard. Like I talked about it, just him handling the pressure. So yeah, it'll be opportunities for the Dolphins to be able to get turnovers. It's just a matter of can they capitalize and actually pick those passes off. If they
And then,
can, then yeah, I think they have to have a chance to win. If
oh
they
yeah,
can't,
no,
if they can't, then it could be some trouble for them, especially considering how bad the secondary has been at times this year for them.
yeah, I can't see the Dolphins dropping 4 interceptions in a game again. I don't think that's going to happen
Well,
again.
I don't know if it's going to be that, but yeah, I definitely he will give you opportunities. It's certain guys in this league they're going to give you opportunities to intercept passes.
Yeah,
He's one of them.
I was referring to the Bills game. It's like I feel like they
Yeah.
dropped like 4 interceptions. Like if they
Oh
had caught
yeah.
just 2 of those, the whole thing would have been so much more different.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. But yeah, you're going to get opportunities against a guy like Zach Wilson. He's just a gambler. He's going to do things like that. You just have to be able to pick those passes off.
All right. So, last question before we go.
Yeah,
Are you gonna go visit Igor and the guys at MetLife Takeover?
of course. Yeah, I'm planning on going. I know they have a party on Saturday. I'll probably be there for that, and then I'll be there on Sunday too as well, saying hello to people. So
Alrighty, man. Well, maybe I'll tell him I'll tell him to save you some food.
well, he already knows I'm coming, so yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, we talk regularly too. I'm supposed to. We're trying to work out like maybe be writing an article about that because they, they're donating money to charity and all that. So we'll figure out. We're trying to figure that out, but if it doesn't happen, then we'll try to make it work at some other time. But yeah, I keep close contacts with a lot of Dolphins people. So
All right. So yeah, that's something I didn't even talk about. MetLife Takeover. Trust me, man, that's gonna make a difference. It seems to make a difference every year. You can hear them yelling through the television screen. Like MetLife Takeover is literally the craziest, loudest Dolphins fans that you can find on this planet Earth, all in one part of the stadium.
yeah, it's gonna be fun because the Jets are coming off a big win. The Dolphins obviously having a lot of success early on, so it's gonna make for a really, really spirited atmosphere. I think on Sunday on both sides.
Alrighty, man. Hey, listen, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it as always. You're an awesome dude, and when we look forward to the day you come back to Miami, whenever that may be. I feel like you won't be able to last forever, man. You'll come back down here and be like, the sunshine.
Maybe you never say never. You never say never in this crazy business. So we'll see.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, thank you for watching this show. As always, prizepicks.com, the sponsor for this show. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. They'll give you freebie picks. They'll give you different offers that you can play with. Go ahead, go right now. Choose the over or the under on either Tyreek Hill or Jaden Waddle. Personally, I'm going to pick the over on Mike Gesicki because I think this might actually be, I think it was Ron who said it on Pulse Fins Nation, that there's going to be a possibility there for him. And Antwan just now, look, you got more reason to think Mike Gesicki. He hasn't had his game yet. This might be it. So anyway, promo code 5, FIVE, match up to $100 on your deposit when you initially sign up. Go to that there right now. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you all next week for another episode of Behind Enemy Lines.